Why does life feel so heavy? We walk through our days feeling like the world is against us. The traffic is too slow. The weather is too cold. The work is too hard. We carry these complaints like a shield, thinking they protect us. But what if the complaints are not a shield? What if they are the very weight that is dragging us down? This was the burden carried by a young traveler named Kael. He was climbing a beautiful mountain path, but he saw none of its beauty. The air was filled with the scent of pine and damp earth, but all he could smell was his own sweat. He was frowning, muttering to himself with each step. The sun was too hot on his neck. The stones on the path were too sharp under his boots. The incline was impossibly steep. He was exhausted, not just physically, but spiritually. He carried a large leather backpack that seemed to get heavier with every complaint, with every frustrated sigh. Kael felt like a victim of the journey, a man cursed by the mountain itself. Halfway up, where the trees thinned and the view opened to a vast, silent valley below, Kael collapsed onto a flat rock. He was ready to quit. He threw his pack to the ground with a heavy thud. "It's too hard," he spat out, the words tasting like defeat. The world was simply too much to bear. It was then, as he sat there stewing in his misery, that he saw him, an old man, walking down the path from the direction of the summit. The man carried a similar leather bag, yet he moved with a lightness that defied gravity. He was whistling a quiet tune, his face turned towards the breeze, a gentle smile on his lips, as if he were sharing a secret with the wind. He seemed to be enjoying the very things Kael had been cursing. As the old man drew near, Kael couldn't contain his bitterness. "How can you smile?" he snapped, his voice rough. "This mountain is miserable. The path is terrible. The sun is a furnace, and the climb is torture. How can anyone find joy in this?" The old man, whose name was Soren, stopped. He didn't seem offended. His eyes, clear and deep like the mountain sky, held a profound calmness. He looked not at Kael, but at the heavy backpack lying on the ground beside him. "The mountain is just a mountain," Soren said, his voice as soft as moss. "It is steep for both of us. The sun shines on us equally. But tell me, traveler, what is in your bag?" Kael scoffed, annoyed by the question. "Just my supplies," he answered curtly. "Food, water, a blanket, the usual things one needs for a journey." Soren slowly shook his head, his smile gentle but knowing. "Are you sure?" "May I see?" he asked. Feeling a strange mix of irritation and curiosity, Kael gestured towards the pack. Soren knelt down and unbuckled the leather straps. He reached inside, past the folded blanket and the water skin. His hand came out holding something unexpected, a heavy, jagged rock, dark and cold. Then he pulled out another and another. Soon, a pile of ugly, sharp stones lay on the ground between them. There were dozens of them, all shapes and sizes, each one a dead weight. Kael stared at the pile, his jaw slack with shock. I didn't put these there," he stammered, genuinely bewildered. "Where did they come from?" Soren looked up from the pile of stones, his gaze meeting Kael's. "You did," he said simply. "You picked them up yourself, though you may not have realized it. Every time you cursed the sun for being too hot, you picked up a stone of anger. Every time you complained about the steepness of the path, you picked up a stone of resentment. When you muttered about the sharp rocks under your feet, you added a stone of victimhood to your pack. You thought you were just speaking words, but you were not." Soren paused, letting the weight of his statement settle. Then he continued, deepening the lesson. Complaining is not just words, Kael. It is an act of gathering. You are actively collecting the very things that hurt you. You stop, you bend down, and you place the hardship into your bag, forcing yourself to carry it for the rest of the journey. You are blaming the mountain for the weight of the stones you chose to carry. It was as if a bolt of lightning had struck Kael's mind. The exhaustion, the misery, the soul-crushing weight he had been feeling. It wasn't the climb, it was the rocks. It was his own negativity made solid and real. He looked at the pile of jagged stones, the stone of anger from the morning sun, the stone of resentment from the steep trail, the stone of impatience from a loose pebble that made him stumble. He saw his entire journey laid out not as a path on a mountain, but as a collection of self-inflicted burdens. The mountain hadn't changed, the sun hadn't changed. The path was just a path, but his reaction, his constant stream of complaints, had created a physical burden that was crushing him. A wave of shame washed over him, but it was quickly followed by something else. A profound sense of relief. He didn't have to carry them, it was his choice. He stood up and one by one began to take the remaining stones out of his pack, letting them fall to the ground. With each stone that dropped, he felt lighter, not just physically, but spiritually. The heavy fog in his mind began to clear. The final scene of this story doesn't end there on the path. We see Kael at the summit. The wind up here is cold and bites at his cheeks, the very kind of wind he would have hated just hours ago. But now, instead of complaining, he turns his face into it. He closes his eyes, takes a deep, cleansing breath, and says quietly to himself, "The wind is crisp." A genuine smile spreads across his face. His bag, now free of stones, rests lightly on his shoulders. He has stopped gathering the things that hurt him. He has stopped blaming the mountain for his load. And for the first time on his journey, he is finally free to enjoy the magnificent view. The moral of this story is simple. Complaining does not change our path. It only makes our load heavier. When we stop gathering the stones of anger and resentment, we find that the journey of life becomes instantly, miraculously lighter. Thank you for watching.